this becoming is the prevalence of diagnosis of autism, the spectrum, gone up worldwide? Or are there different spikes in different countries?
There's absolutely different spikes in different countries. Even within, say, the United States, there's different spikes in different areas. And again, it's funny because there's two ways to look at that. One is to say, oh, look, California must have some big environmental factor that's causing that.
Right.
And the other is to say, actually, there's socio-cultural explanations for, why the rates may be higher in some areas than others, just because there's, medical practice is a cultural practice. The conventions may change, they may differ locally. The pressures that may exist in the educational system, for example, where getting a diagnosis of autism may be useful in terms of getting extra support for a child, that brings a pressure to have a diagnosis. And that may differ socioculturally across different regions, across different countries, and so on. So,
Right.
yeah, so all of the evidence, to my mind, and to many others, is that the increased diagnosis that we see and the differences in prevalence across different areas reflect these social factors, not anything environmental, not any change in the underlying biology.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, on some level, I have sympathy for a lot of these people that are, I don't know, wrapped up in the idea of conspiracy theory, that is vaccines, that is all the chemicals, that is all these things. I really do, because I mean, I could not get behind, but I can understand the theory of, somewhere like the US that is so highly medicated. I
Yeah.
mean, I've never lived in the US, but now I've started watching tennis on US television, and I cannot believe all of the ads for pharmaceuticals. It is astounding, because sometimes I have to put on something else because I just can't watch this. Buy this, buy this. Anal leakage may vary. Like all these crazy commercials.
Yeah.
But for me, like, not a scientist, not educated in biology, etc., or the immune system, like, just to think of someone taking all of these antidepressants, Ritalin, other ADHD medications. What are the other ones? Sleeping pills,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, Xanax, whatever the anxiety ones are. Like, I would think that, how can that not change perhaps the material that leads to creating other life, and how can that not change the building blocks for how it affects the brain? I don't believe any of that stuff. I just think there has to be something, but it doesn't mean that there is.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, you're hitting on that's one particular example, but just more generally, when people see something happening in the world, they presume that there's a cause of it, right? And if
You
it's
want to do
one,
something.
yeah, right. So there's absolutely a temptation to look for one simple cause that's also actionable, right? So
Right.
if it's fluoride in the water, we can just stop fluoridating the water, right? I mean, it isn't,
Right.
right? But that's where these two things kind of the mindset goes hand in hand, because people, you mentioned earlier that autism is a spectrum, and the spectrum has been widened sort of towards the less severe end, right? So now many people
Right.
with an autism diagnosis basically get along fine in the world, right? They may have some difficulties in some sort of social circumstances, for example, that have led them to getting a diagnosis, but they're not disabled, right? Whereas at the other end, there, you have people who are basically won't be able to look after themselves. They
Right.
may never speak. Often there's an intellectual disability that goes along with it. They might have other medical conditions as well, like epilepsy and so on. So severe autism is a really tragic condition, and it drives parents to really, really want to be able to do something for their child, and
Yeah,
that
it's
urge,
sad. It's really
it's
sad.
it's it's awful, yeah, and that urge is perfectly understandable. And it comes down to, to geneticists and scientists to do a better job of explaining the sort of complexities and subtleties of the real picture,
Mm.
to try and combat these simple stories that are much more sensational, much more attention grabbing, much more easy to digest, but wrong.